The man arrived at the Breakwater Motel at 2:13 inches the morning with blood on his collar and a gunshot hole through the shoulder of his black coat. Cassidy Lane saw him through the rain-streaked windows before she heard the bell above the lobby door. He crossed the parking lot without running, though the storm was violent enough to bend the cedar trees along the Oregon coastline. Wind drove rain sideways beneath the motel's flickering blue sign. Waves crashed somewhere beyond the cliff, hidden by darkness and fog. The stranger moved as if the weather belonged to him. So did the danger. Cassidy's hand stopped above the old brass key hanging beneath the number 17. Across the lobby, a frightened woman sat pressed into the corner of a faded leather couch. Her little girl slept against her chest, beneath an oversized yellow raincoat. The woman had arrived 20 minutes earlier, shaking so badly she could barely sign the registration card. She had paid in cash. She had looked over her shoulder 6 times. And when Cassidy had asked whether someone was following her, the woman had whispered, "Please don't write my name down." Now the stranger entered. Rainwater rolled from his dark hair across a face that might have been handsome if it had not looked so cold. He appeared to be in his late 30s, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in clothing too expensive for a roadside motel where the ice machine had been broken since February. His gaze moved once around the room. The frightened mother, the sleeping child, the security camera, the hallway leading to the rooms. Then Cassidy. "Give me the last room," he said. His voice was quiet. Not weak, not tired. Controlled. Cassidy had learned during 5 years of night shifts that the most dangerous people rarely needed to raise their voices. She closed her fingers around the key to room 17. "It's taken." The man looked at the empty brass hooks behind her. 16 keys remained. Only one was missing. "You have 16 vacancies. 16 rooms with leaking ceilings, electrical problems, or windows that don't lock." Cassidy lifted her chin. "The last safe room is taken." The stranger glanced toward the woman and child. The mother tightened her arms around the little girl. "I'll pay 10 times the rate." "No." 20. "No." His eyes returned to Cassidy's face. For the first time, something shifted in them. Not anger. Curiosity. Perhaps no one told him no very often. Cassidy had no idea that the man standing in front of her had ordered men executed without changing his tone. She did not know that judges, politicians, and crime families from San Francisco to Vancouver feared hearing his name spoken after midnight. All she knew was that he was bleeding, armed, and asking her to remove a terrified woman and child from the only room where they might be safe. "The diner in town opens at 5, Cassidy said. "You can wait there. There won't be a diner by 5. The words sent a cold line down her spine. Outside, headlights appeared through the fog. Not one vehicle. 3. They moved slowly along the coastal highway, black shapes distorted by heavy rain. The stranger turned his head slightly. His expression did not change, but his right hand moved beneath his coat. Cassidy saw the dark handle of a weapon. The frightened woman saw it too. She stood abruptly, nearly waking the child. The stranger spoke without looking at her. "Sit down." She froze. Cassidy stepped from behind the reception desk. "Don't order her around." His attention settled on Cassidy again. The approaching headlights disappeared behind the motel's western wing. "Turn off the lobby lights," he said. "That's not happening. They're not looking for the woman." A faint mechanical sound came from outside. A vehicle door opening. Then another. The stranger walked to the lobby window and looked through the narrow gap in the curtains. Cassidy noticed the blood running from beneath his coat sleeve. Whatever had happened to him had happened recently. He reached inside his jacket. Cassidy grabbed the heavy flashlight beneath the desk and aimed it at him like a weapon. "Take out the gun and I'll call the police." He looked at the flashlight, then at her. "If the men outside enter this lobby, the police will arrive in time to count the bodies." Cassidy's pulse hammered. The child shifted in her mother's arms. The stranger's gaze softened for half a second. It vanished so quickly Cassidy wondered if she had imagined it. "Turn off the lights," he repeated. This time she did. Darkness swallowed the lobby. Only the blue glow of the motel sign remained, flickering through the blinds. The stranger positioned himself near the door, one hand beneath his coat. Cassidy moved beside the mother and silently pointed toward the hallway. "Room 17, she whispered. "End of the hall. Lock the door behind you." The woman hesitated, looking at the stranger. He gave a small nod. She hurried away with the child. Cassidy remained. The stranger watched her. "You should go with them. This is my motel." "No," he said. "It belongs to a man named Eugene Pike, who owes $280,000 to 3 different banks and uses half the income to gamble online. Cassidy stared at him. He knew the owner, or he had learned more in 30 seconds than she had learned in 5 years. How do you know that? A shadow moved past the front window. The stranger raised one finger to his lips. Someone tried the lobby door. Cassidy had locked it at midnight. The handle turned once, twice. Then a man outside knocked. Highway patrol. The stranger's eyes hardened. Cassidy moved toward the door. His hand closed around her wrist. The contact was firm but not painful. Still, her breath caught. Don't, he said. Let go. He did. Immediately. That surprised her more than being grabbed. Outside, the man knocked again. Ma'am, we received a report of a dangerous individual in the area. Cassidy looked through the peephole. The man wore a rain jacket, but no visible badge. Behind him, another figure stood near a black vehicle. The stranger moved close enough that Cassidy could feel the heat of him despite his rain-soaked clothes. Ask for his badge number, he murmured. Cassidy did. The man outside paused too long. Open the door, ma'am. What's your badge number? Another pause. Then the knocking stopped. Footsteps moved away. The black vehicles remained in the parking lot for nearly an hour. The stranger sat in a chair facing the front door, his weapon hidden but ready beneath his coat. He did not ask again for the room. He did not complain about the blood. He simply watched. Cassidy stayed behind the desk with the flashlight in her lap. Neither of them spoke. At 3:30, the power failed. At 4:10, one of the vehicles circled the property. At 4:45, Cassidy noticed that the stranger's breathing had changed. It was shallow, uneven. His face remained expressionless, but his fingers had closed around the arm of the chair so tightly his knuckles had gone white. You're going to pass out, she said. No. You're bleeding through the chair. He glanced down. Dark red had spread across the faded upholstery. Cassidy retrieved the first aid kit. When she approached, he stood. Too quickly. For one dangerous second, the room seemed to tilt beneath him. Cassidy reached for his arm. He caught her hand before she touched him. Their faces were suddenly close. Rain and darkness surrounded them. His grip was controlled, but something panicked flickered behind his eyes. Not fear of her. Fear of being touched. Cassidy slowly lowered her voice. You need pressure on the wound. I've had worse. That doesn't make this one disappear. His gaze dropped to her hand trapped in his. He released her. Cassidy guided him back into the chair and cut through the fabric near his shoulder. The wound was not as severe as she feared. The bullet had grazed him, tearing flesh but missing bone. Still, the sight of it made her stomach tighten. You should be at a hospital. Hospitals keep records. So do morgue. A strange sound escaped him. Not laughter. Almost. Cassidy cleaned the wound while he watched her face. She had treated drunk fishermen, injured tourists, and motel guests who believed towels could stop serious bleeding. But she had never worked under the gaze of a man who seemed to notice every change in her breathing. You're not afraid enough, he said. I'm afraid. You hide it well. So do you. His expression cooled. Cassidy realized she had touched something she did not understand. For several seconds, only the storm spoke. Then he said, What's your name? You first. He studied her. Damian. Just Damian? For tonight. She tied the bandage securely. Then I'm just Cassidy. I already know your last name. Her fingers stopped. The name tag pinned to her sweater read only Cassidy. Before she could question him, the headlights outside finally moved. The vehicles disappeared toward the highway. Damian remained seated until sunrise. He guarded the door while Cassidy completed paperwork she could not concentrate on. At 6:15, the frightened mother returned to the lobby with her daughter. The little girl was awake now. She had dark curls, serious gray eyes, and a stuffed rabbit clutched beneath one arm. She looked at Damian's torn coat. Did you fight a bear? Damian's face became unreadable. No. Would you win? He looked toward Cassidy. Yes. The child seemed satisfied. Her mother approached the desk and returned the key to room 17. Thank you, she whispered. Cassidy noticed fresh bruises along the woman's wrist. You can stay another night. The woman glanced at Damian. No, we have to keep moving. Damian stood. Every muscle in the mother's body tightened. He reached slowly inside his coat. Cassidy prepared to move between them. But Damian removed a black card with a silver phone number and placed it on the counter. If anyone follows you, he said, call that number. The woman stared at the card. Why would you help me? Damian's eyes moved briefly to the child. Because she needs you alive. The mother took the card. When she turned toward the door, the little girl stopped beside Damian. She held out the stuffed rabbit. You can borrow him if you're scared. Damian looked down at the toy. Something inside him seemed to fracture without appearing on his face. I'm not scared. The child frowned. Everybody gets scared. Before he could answer, her mother pulled her gently away. They disappeared into the gray morning. Cassidy watched Damian watching them. His eyes remained fixed on the little girl until the car vanished into the rain. Then he turned to Cassidy. You gave them room 17. Yes. Why that room? It's the only one where the window locks. His jaw tightened. What? Nothing. But it was not nothing. For the first time since entering the motel, Damian looked disturbed. He walked down the hallway without asking permission. Cassidy followed. Where are you going? Room 17. They just left. It hasn't been cleaned. He stopped outside the door. The tarnished brass numbers hung slightly crooked against dark green paint. Damian did not touch the handle. He stared at it as though there were something alive on the other side. Have you ever opened the floor beneath the bed? He asked. Cassidy crossed her arms. Why would I open the floor? Has anyone renovated this room? This motel hasn't been renovated since people smoked on airplanes. Damian finally looked at her. Keep the room empty. You don't own the motel. Not yet. Cassidy thought he was threatening her. By 9 that morning, he was gone. By noon, Cassidy's employer called. Eugene Pike sounded breathless. Don't touch anything. Cassidy sat behind the desk with a cup of coffee, gone cold in her hands. What happened? I sold the motel. She looked toward the empty chair where Damian had bled through the upholstery. You what? The whole property, cash, more than it's worth. To whom? There was a pause. Vale Coastal Holdings. Cassidy closed her eyes. Of course. When does the sale become official? It already is. A black SUV entered the parking lot. Then another. Then 4 more. Men in dark coats emerged into the rain. The final vehicle stopped directly outside the lobby. Damian stepped out, wearing a clean black suit. No torn coat. No visible blood. No sign that he had spent the night wounded in a motel chair. He entered as if he had never left. Cassidy slowly set down her coffee. You bought the motel. Yes. You said not yet 5 hours ago. It took longer than expected. 5 hours is longer than expected? The owner tried to negotiate. What happened? He stopped. 2 men entered behind him carrying metal cases. Another began examining the windows. Cassidy came around the desk. You cannot bring an army into my workplace. Damian removed his gloves. It's no longer your workplace. Her stomach dropped. He watched the reaction hit her. Then he placed a folder on the counter. It's your property to manage. Cassidy opened the folder. Her name appeared beside the words, General Manager. The salary beneath it was almost triple what she earned. She looked up. No. You haven't read the terms. I don't need to. You retain full operational authority. Except over room 17. His silence confirmed it. Cassidy closed the folder. You bought an entire motel because I refused you 1 room? I bought it because the locks are useless, the security cameras are decorative, and the man who owned it would have sold your address for a free drink. That doesn't answer the question. No, Damian said. It doesn't. Workers arrived throughout the afternoon. They replaced the lobby glass with reinforced panels. They installed cameras around the parking lot, motion sensors along the rear cliff, and steel locks on every door. Cassidy followed Damian from one room to another, becoming more furious with every order he gave. You cannot turn this place into a fortress. I already have. Guests won't stay in a fortress. They will if it has clean rooms. You insulted the motel. It has mold in the west wing. It has character. It has a structural problem. So do you. Damian stopped. One of his men nearby lowered his eyes, visibly pretending not to have heard. Cassidy expected anger. Instead, Damian took one slow step toward her. You're very comfortable provoking me. I'm comfortable telling you the truth. That can become dangerous. Is that a threat? No. His eyes moved across her face. It's concern. The way he said it made the word sound more dangerous than a threat. That evening, a delivery truck arrived with new mattresses, generators, medical supplies, and enough food to last through a month-long storm. Damian claimed room 16, the room beside room 17. He did not explain why he remained at the motel, instead of returning to whatever mansion men like him occupied. Cassidy did not ask. For 3 days, the storm closed the highway north and flooded the road south. The motel became an island between the forest and the ocean. Damian's men patrolled the grounds. Guests stopped arriving. Cassidy's normal life disappeared. She spent her nights completing renovation lists, while Damian occupied the lobby chair near the window, always facing the entrance. He rarely slept. At 2 in the morning, she would find him studying old property records. At 4, he stood outside room 17. He never entered. On the 4th night, Cassidy brought him coffee. He looked at it. I didn't order this. You sit in my lobby every night. Your lobby? I'm the manager. A faint challenge appeared in his eyes. She placed the cup before him. Drink it or don't. He drank it. An hour later, Cassidy found him in the laundry room, one hand gripping the edge of a machine while his breathing came in sharp, controlled bursts. The emergency generator had malfunctioned. The lights had gone out. Damian stood in complete darkness. Damian? Stay back. His voice was not cold now. It was strained. Cassidy turned on her flashlight, but aimed it toward the floor. He had removed his jacket. His white shirt clung to his back. Sweat marked his temples, despite the cold. You're having a panic attack. I don't have panic attacks. Then you're doing an excellent imitation. His jaw clenched. Cassidy remained near the door. She remembered the way he had caught her hand when she tried to touch him. Look at the light, she said. He did not. Damian. His eyes found hers. Tell me 5 things you can see. I don't need 5. His gaze held hers with something close to fury. Then he said, the flashlight. 1. The door. 2. The machine behind you. 3. Your shoes. 4. Silence. What's 5? His breathing slowed slightly. You. The word changed the air. Cassidy swallowed. What can you hear? The generator. The rain. The ocean. And? Your breathing. The darkness seemed to draw them closer, despite the distance between them. Cassidy lowered the flashlight. You're safe. His face shut down immediately. Never say that to me. Why? Because it is never true. The lights returned. Damian straightened and became the man everyone feared again. But Cassidy had seen the other man, the one trapped in darkness, the one who had looked at her as though she were the only fixed point in a collapsing world. The next morning, Cassidy found a new emergency lighting system installed throughout the motel. No one mentioned why. On the 5th day, Damian entered room 17. Cassidy found the door open and the bed dragged aside. He stood over a section of exposed floorboards, while 2 men used electronic scanners against the wood. You said I retained operational authority, she said. You do. You tore up my floor. I'll replace it. That isn't the point. Damian dismissed the men with a glance. When they left, Cassidy entered. The room smelled of old wood and ocean damp. What are you looking for? Something that belongs to me. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Cassidy noticed a faded mark carved into the baseboard near the bed. A small V surrounded by 4 lines. Damian saw her looking. His expression hardened. What does it mean? She asked. Nothing. You're a terrible liar. I'm un excellent liar. Then you're choosing to be terrible. He crossed the distance between them. Cassidy refused to retreat. He stopped close enough that she could see the faint scar beneath his left eye. You should be careful what you try to uncover, he said. You bought my motel, invaded my life, and tore open a room because of something that happened here. You don't get to pretend it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with keeping you alive. From whom? His silence frightened her more than any answer. That night, a red sports car arrived. A woman stepped out wearing a cream coat and heels unsuited for the flooded parking lot. She was elegant, beautiful, and visibly angry. Damian watched her enter without standing. Is this where you've been hiding? She asked. I'm not hiding. The woman looked at Cassidy. Her gaze moved over Cassidy's simple sweater, work pants, and motel name tag. Understanding flashed across her face. So this is the reason. Cassidy stiffened. Damian's voice cooled. Celeste. She doesn't know? Leave. Celeste smiled without warmth. To answer the obvious question, I'm Celeste Rourke, Damian's fiancée. Cassidy felt something twist beneath her ribs. It was irrational. She barely knew Damian. She disliked his control, his secrecy, and the way his presence had taken over every corner of her life. But she had seen him break in the darkness. She had watched him drink the coffee she brought him. She had begun to recognize the silence he used when he was tired rather than angry. And now another woman stood before her claiming him. Damian rose. There is no engagement. There will be if you want the Vancouver alliance. I don't. Celeste's smile faded. You did before she refused you a motel room. Cassidy looked at Damian. His expression revealed nothing. Celeste stepped closer to Cassidy. You should understand something. Damian doesn't protect people because he cares. He protects assets until they stop being useful. Enough, Damian said. The lobby seemed to become colder. Celeste turned toward him. Your uncle wants you back in Portland. The families are asking questions. They think you've lost perspective. My perspective is not their concern. They think she is. Cassidy's pulse jumped. Celeste lowered her voice. You're placing an entire organization at risk for a receptionist. Damian moved between them. Not dramatically. Simply enough to block Celeste's view of Cassidy. She has a name. The words were calm. Possessive. Final. Celeste looked past him at Cassidy. Then she laughed softly. Oh, this is much worse than I thought. She left 10 minutes later. Damian returned to the papers spread across the desk. Cassidy stood behind the counter, pretending to organize keys. Were you going to marry her? No. Did you consider it? Yes. The honesty stung. Why? Political stability. That sounds romantic. It wasn't intended to be. Cassidy focused on the keys. Is that how everything works for you? People become agreements, liabilities, or assets? Usually. And what am I? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Damian looked at her. The storm rattled the windows. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he rose and walked toward her. Cassidy's heart beat harder with every step. He stopped on the opposite side of the counter. His hand lifted. For one suspended second, she thought he might touch her face. His fingers stopped inches from her skin. Then he lowered them. A complication, he said. He walked away. Cassidy hated that the answer stayed with her all night. 2 days later, the highway reopened. So did the danger. The first warning came from the cameras. At 1:08 inches the morning, one screen flickered. Then another. The feed from the eastern parking lot turned black. Damian was beside Cassidy before she could call his name. Get down. Glass exploded inward. Damian pushed her beneath the desk as bullets tore through the lobby windows. The reinforced glass cracked but did not fully shatter. His body covered hers. His hand pressed against the back of her head, holding her close to the floor. Men shouted outside. Damian's guards returned fire from the hallway and parking lot. Cassidy could smell rain, dust, and the faint metallic trace of blood. Are you hit? She asked. No. Another shot struck the wall. Damian shifted, shielding her completely. Stay beneath me. What about the guests? There are no guests. You closed the booking system? Yes. When? Before the attack. You knew? I suspected. Cassidy shoved against his chest. You used the motel as bait? His face changed. No. You knew men were coming and kept me here. I doubled security. That is not the same as telling me. A bullet struck the desk. Damian's expression became lethal. Argue with me when you're alive enough to enjoy it. The attack ended in less than 4 minutes. 2 vehicles sped away. One crashed near the highway. Damian's men dragged an injured attacker beneath the motel awning. Cassidy followed despite Damian ordering her to remain inside. Rain soaked her instantly. The captured man laughed when he saw Damian. Rourke says the room belongs to him. Damian crouched before him. What room? The man smiled through blood. 17. Damian's calm disappeared. He grabbed the man by the coat. Who told Vincent? The attacker's gaze shifted toward Cassidy. He said the girl would make you careless. Damian struck him once. The sound was sickening. Cassidy froze. She had understood that Damian was violent. Knowing it and witnessing it were different things. He raised his hand again. Damian. He stopped. Rain streamed down his face. The attacker laughed. She already sees what you are. Damian looked at Cassidy. For the first time, she saw fear in him. Not fear of the man. Fear of her expression. He released the attacker and stood. Cassidy took a step back. Damian noticed. Something went still behind his eyes. He turned to his men. Take him. Then he walked alone into the storm. Cassidy found him an hour later near the cliff. The ocean below was a black, furious void. He stood without a coat, rain flattening his shirt against his body. You'll freeze, she said. No. You say no to a lot of obvious facts. He did not turn. Cassidy remained several feet away. The image of him striking the man replayed in her mind. You frightened me, she admitted. I know. Do you regret it? No. She almost left. Then he said, I regret that you saw it. That isn't the same thing. No. Honesty again. Cruel, clean honesty. Cassidy moved beside him but kept distance between them. Who is Vincent Rourke? My uncle. Why does he care about room 17? Damian stared into the darkness. 15 years ago, my father brought my sister and me to this motel. He was meeting someone who promised to help us escape the family. Cassidy remained silent. My father knew Vincent was betraying him. He planned to take us north. We stayed in room 17. The wind pulled at his wet shirt. My sister was 9, her name was Elena. Cassidy thought of the little girl with the stuffed rabbit. What happened? The power failed. Men entered the room. I tried to fight them. His voice remained steady, but his hands had closed into fists. I woke outside near the cliff. My father was dead. Elena was gone. Did you find her? No. Was there a body? No. Cassidy turned toward him. Then she may have survived. That belief cost me 10 years. What changed? I found the man who took her. Her breath caught. He said she died before sunrise. Do you believe him? I killed him before I could decide. The words settled heavily between them. Damian looked down at his hands. I spent 15 years becoming powerful enough that no one could ever take anyone from me again. Cassidy understood then. The cameras, the guards, the locks, the sleepless nights, his obsession with entrances, exits, and darkness. And it still doesn't make you feel safe, she said. His gaze lifted. No. Cassidy stepped closer. He went rigid when she raised her hand. She stopped before touching his face. May I? The question seemed to affect him more deeply than the touch would have. After a long silence, he nodded. Cassidy placed her palm against his cheek. He closed his eyes. Only for a second. But in that second, the feared man disappeared. There was only a boy standing in a dark motel room, failing to save his sister. Damian covered Cassidy's wrist with his hand. His grip was gentle. When he opened his eyes, the hunger in them frightened her differently. He leaned closer. The space between their mouths narrowed. Cassidy's pulse stumbled. Then headlights swept across the cliff. Damian released her instantly and turned. A vehicle had entered the parking lot. The moment vanished, but it did not leave either of them. The visitor was Vincent Rourke. He arrived in a silver sedan without visible security, dressed in a charcoal suit, silver hair immaculate despite the rain. He looked more like a senator than a criminal. Damian, he said warmly, you've made quite a spectacle. Damian stood in the lobby, expression blank. Cassidy remained behind the counter. Vincent smiled at her. You must be Cassidy. Must I? His smile widened. I understand the fascination. Damian moved slightly, again placing himself between them. Vincent noticed. I came to prevent a war, he said. The families believe Damian has abandoned his responsibilities. I haven't. You rejected the Rourke alliance, purchased a dying motel, and deployed 30 men to protect one woman. 24. Vincent Sahil. There are rules. I write the rules. That confidence is why your father died. The room went silent. Cassidy watched Damian's face empty of emotion. Vincent continued. Room 17 has made you irrational before. Do not allow it to destroy you again. What is beneath the floor? Cassidy asked. Both men looked at her. Vincent's expression remained pleasant. Old grief. That isn't what your attackers said. Vincent's smile faded by a fraction. Be careful, Miss Lane. Compassion often makes ordinary people believe they can survive extraordinary conflicts. Damian's voice lowered. Threaten her again. Vincent looked at his nephew. And what? You'll kill the only man who knows where your sister was taken. Damian stopped breathing. Cassidy felt the shock move through him, though he did not move. Vincent had come for exactly this moment. You told me she died, Damian said. I told you what you needed to believe. The control in Damian's face cracked. He seized Vincent by the throat and drove him against the wall. Men outside reached for weapons. Damian's guards did the same. Cassidy came around the desk. Damian. Vincent struggled beneath his hand but continued smiling. She lived, he rasped. At least for a while. Damian's fingers tightened. Where? Let me go. Where? Beneath the floor. Damian released him. Vincent adjusted his collar. Your father hid a ledger in room 17. Names, accounts, payments. Proof that I arranged his death. Cassidy stared. Why would you admit that? Because the ledger is no longer there. Vincent looked at Damian. Elena found it before my men found her. She escaped with it. Damian's face went pale. You hunted a 9-year-old child. I protected the family from a liability. Where is she? I don't know. Damian stepped forward. Vincent raised one hand. But someone does. His gaze moved toward Cassidy. The woman you protected on the first night. The one with the little girl. Cassidy's blood turned cold. Vincent smiled again. She was not a random guest. Damian looked at Cassidy. What name did she give you? She didn't. What did she look like? Cassidy described her. Dark hair, gray eyes, a scar near the wrist. Damian closed his eyes briefly. Elena had that scar. The child's stuffed rabbit. The way Damian had stared at her. The way the woman had feared him. Cassidy felt the entire story rearrange itself. She knew who you were, she whispered. Vincent nodded. She has been hiding for 15 years. Then she returns to the only motel connected to her disappearance on the same night Damian arrives wounded. It was arranged, Damian said. By whom? Cassidy asked. Vincent's gaze settled on her. Possibly by you. Damian turned slowly. Cassidy stared at Vincent. That's insane. Is it? Your mother worked at this motel 15 years ago. Cassidy's heart stopped. Damian looked at her. My mother was a housekeeper. She helped Elena escape, Vincent said. Then she disappeared with the ledger. Cassidy shook her head. My mother died when I was 13. So you were told. Damian's expression hardened. You knew her identity? Vincent adjusted his cuff. I suspected. The name Lane was difficult to ignore. Damian looked at Cassidy differently now. Not coldly, but suspicion had returned. It hurt more than it should have. You thought I knew about this? She asked. I don't know what to think. You searched my history. Yes. You knew who my mother was, and said nothing. I knew she worked here. I did not know she helped Elena. Did you buy the motel because of me, or because of her? His silence answered badly. Cassidy stepped back. Vincent had achieved what he wanted. He had placed doubt between them. You should leave, Cassidy said. Damian looked at her. Cassidy, both of you. Vincent walked toward the door. Before exiting, he paused. The ledger gives Elena control over a fortune your father hid. If she returns, every family on the coast will hunt her. He looked at Cassidy, and they will begin with the woman she trusted enough to approach. When the door closed, Cassidy turned on Damian. How long have you been investigating me? Since the first night. Before or after I cleaned your wound? Before. Before or after you decided I was a complication. His jaw tightened. I needed to know whether you were connected to room 17. And what did you find? That your mother, Julia Lane, worked here the year Elena disappeared. She left town 3 days later. Cassidy's throat burned. My mother never spoke about this motel. We moved constantly when I was a child. She was terrified of strangers. She checked locks twice before sleeping. Memories returned with new meaning. Closed curtains. Cash hidden in kitchen jars. Her mother freezing whenever a dark car remained too long outside. You used me, Cassidy said. No. You bought the motel to search the room. You kept me close because you thought I might know something. At first, the words struck harder than a lie. At first, she repeated. Damian moved toward her. She stepped back. He stopped instantly. What changed? She demanded. His voice lowered. Everything. That is not an answer. You want an answer I do not know how to give. Tre. The silence between them became unbearable. Damian looked toward the chair where he had guarded the lobby on the first night. When I entered this place, you were a possible connection to Elena. Cassidy said nothing. Then you refused me the room. That made you angry? It made me curious. He took one careful step closer. You stood between me and a frightened woman when you believed I was armed. You treated my wound when you should have run. You saw what darkness does to me, and did not use it against me. His composure thinned. I began measuring time by when you entered a room. Cassidy's breath caught. I knew which floorboard outside the office made you pause because you believed it would wake me. I knew you drank coffee when you were afraid and tea when you were angry. I knew you stopped wearing your mother's ring on your right hand after Vincent arrived because you twist it when you lie. His voice became quieter. I stopped searching your history. Why? Because I became afraid of finding something that would require me to distrust you. The confession moved through her slowly. Darkly. It was not gentle love. It was dependence wrapped in control. You installed cameras, she said, to protect you. You watched me. Yes. That isn't normal. Nothing about me is normal. His honesty left no safe place to stand. Cassidy looked into his eyes and saw the obsession he had denied. Were you ever going to let me leave? Pain flashed across his face. Yes. She almost believed him. Would you have followed me? Yes. The answer was immediate. Cassidy laughed once, without humor. At least you're consistent. She moved past him. Damian caught her wrist, then released it before she could protest. His hand remained suspended between them. Do not leave tonight. Is that an order? A request. From the man who bought my workplace and investigated my dead mother? From the man who believes Vincent will kill you before morning. Cassidy looked toward the windows. Outside, the storm had returned. She hated that danger made his control reasonable. She hated more that part of her felt safer because he was there. "I'll stay until we find the woman and child," she said. "After that, I'm done." Damian's expression did not move, but something in his eyes broke. He nodded. "All right." The search began immediately. Damian traced the phone number on the card he had given Elena. It had been activated once near a fishing town 30 miles south. Cassidy remembered the woman mentioning that her daughter became sick in cars. There were only 3 places along the coastal road where they might have stopped. They found the abandoned vehicle near an old church above the harbor. The driver's door stood open. Blood marked the steering wheel. No bodies. Inside the church, candles burned despite the storm. Cassidy entered beside Damian while his men searched the grounds. A woman stood near the altar. Not Elena. Celeste Rourke. She held the little girl's stuffed rabbit. Damian's face became ice. "Where are they?" Celeste looked exhausted. "Vincent has them. You helped him. I tried to stop him. You led him to the motel. My father said Elena was coming for you. He said she planned to destroy the Alliance and expose all of us." "You believed him?" "I believed the man who raised me." Damian stepped closer. Celeste looked at Cassidy. "He used me too." "Where did he take them?" Cassidy asked. "Vale House." Damian went still. Cassidy knew the name from newspapers. An abandoned coastal estate that once belonged to Damian's father. "He wants room 17 opened," Celeste continued. "The ledger isn't beneath the floor, it's in the walls." Elena returned because Julia Lane left instructions with her. "My mother?" Cassidy asked. Celeste nodded. "Julia separated the ledger. Elena has the account codes. Cassidy has the key. I don't have any key." Celeste looked at the ring on Cassidy's right hand. Her mother's ring. A small silver band with a dark blue stone. Cassidy stared at it. "She gave this to me before she died." "The stone isn't real," Celeste said. "It opens." Cassidy removed the ring. Damian took it gently and pressed his thumbnail beneath the setting. The blue stone lifted. Inside was a narrow piece of metal, engraved with the same symbol carved into room 17. A V surrounded by 4 lines. Cassidy felt as if her mother had reached through 15 years of silence and placed the truth directly into her palm. "She knew," Cassidy whispered. Damian looked at her. "She protected Elena. And never told me. She was trying to protect you too." The church doors opened violently. One of Damian's men entered. Vehicles approaching. Celeste paled. "My father followed me." Damian took Cassidy's hand. "We leave now." They escaped through an underground passage beneath the church as gunfire broke through the stained glass windows. The tunnel opened near the harbor. Rain turned the wooden docks slick beneath their feet. A black SUV waited at the end of the pier. Halfway there, men emerged from between fishing warehouses. Damian pulled Cassidy behind a stack of crates. Shots tore through the rain. He shielded her, one arm locked around her waist. "Stay down. You're bleeding." A line of red marked his side. "It's nothing. You always say that. And you always argue." Even in terror, Cassidy almost laughed. A man appeared behind them. Damian turned too slowly. Cassidy grabbed a metal hook from the dock and swung it into the attacker's wrist. The weapon fell. Damian disarmed him and pulled Cassidy toward the SUV. They reached it as the warehouse behind them erupted in flames. Orange light spread across the black water. Inside the vehicle, Damian pressed one hand to his side. Cassidy tore open his shirt near the wound. The bullet had grazed him again. "You attract remarkably inaccurate assassins," she said, hands shaking. His gaze remained on her face. "You came back for me. You were standing between me and the bullets. You could have run. So could you." "No." The word carried a terrible certainty. Cassidy looked up. Damian's hand rose to her cheek. This time, he touched her. His thumb moved across the rainwater beneath her eye. "I cannot run from you," he said. The confession was almost soundless. The vehicle moved through the storm. Cassidy should have pulled away. Instead, she leaned into his hand for one breath. Only one. Then she bandaged his side. They returned to the motel before dawn. Room 17 waited. Damian dismissed everyone except Cassidy. Together they entered. Cassidy placed the metal key from her ring into the carved mark near the baseboard. A section of wall released with a soft click. Behind it was a narrow compartment. Inside lay an old cassette recorder, several photographs, and half of a handwritten ledger. Cassidy picked up the recorder. Her mother's voice filled the room. "If you are hearing this, Vincent Rourke found Elena." Cassidy closed her eyes. The voice was older than she remembered, but unmistakable. "Damian, your sister survived. I helped her escape because your father asked me to protect her if anything happened to him. Vincent had men everywhere. Elena could not return to you without leading them directly to you. Damian stood motionless. She carried the account numbers. I kept the names. Neither half can destroy Vincent alone. The recording crackled. Cassidy, if you are hearing this, I am sorry. I wanted you to have a life untouched by these men. The ring was never meant to become your burden. Tears blurred Cassidy's vision. Damian reached toward her, then stopped. She took his hand herself. His fingers closed around hers. Her mother's voice continued. Elena will return only if she believes Damian has become powerful enough to survive the truth. But power may not be what saves either of them. The tape ended. Damian stared at the recorder. She waited 15 years because she was afraid of me. She was afraid of Vincent. She came to the motel and did not tell me who she was. She had a child to protect. The words hit him. He thought of the little girl offering him the rabbit. Damian turned away, one hand covering his mouth. Cassidy had never seen him cry. He did not now, but his shoulders shook once. Only once. She moved behind him and placed her hand between his shoulder blades. He caught her wrist and pulled her around. Then he held her. Not with possession, with desperation. His arms closed around her as though he had spent 15 years refusing to fall and could no longer remain standing. Cassidy pressed her face against his chest. His heart hammered beneath her cheek. I should have known her, he said. You were looking for a 9-year-old girl. I looked at her and saw fear. She did not know whether you had become your father or your uncle. His arms tightened. And what do you see? Cassidy lifted her face. A man who believes control can prevent grief. His expression hardened slightly. And? A man who frightened me. He released a slow breath. And? A man who stayed in a motel lobby all night to protect strangers when he was the one being hunted. His gaze dropped to her mouth. And? Cassidy's pulse deepened. A man I should not trust. His hand moved to the side of her neck. But you do. Sometimes. That is more dangerous. I know. He leaned toward her. The motel lights flickered. Damian stopped. Cassidy almost smiled. Are you waiting for permission? Yes. The answer undid her. She closed the distance. Their first kiss was not gentle. It carried every interrupted moment, every suspicion, every night spent watching each other across the lobby. Damian kissed her like a man losing an argument with himself. Then he pulled away abruptly, breathing hard. If I continue, he said, I will not want to stop. Cassidy held his gaze. That sounds like a problem for a man who owns an entire motel. A rough sound escaped him. This time, it was laughter, real and brief. Then one of the security alarms sounded. The eastern gate had been breached. Vincent had arrived. Black SUVs surrounded the motel. Their headlights cut through the storm. Damian's men moved into position. Vincent's voice came through the outdoor speakers. Bring me the ledger and the key, or Elena dies in the parking lot. Cassidy and Damian reached the lobby. Through the cracked glass, they saw Elena kneeling beneath the motel sign, her hands bound. Her daughter stood beside Vincent, crying silently. The child held no rabbit now. Vincent rested one hand on her shoulder. Damian went completely still. Cassidy understood at once. This was the nightmare that had shaped him. A child in danger. His sister beyond his reach. Darkness and rain. The past repeating itself. You cannot go out there, Cassidy said. He has them. He wants you emotional. He succeeded. Damian reached for the ledger. Cassidy stopped him. My mother divided the evidence because neither half works alone. Vincent does not know we found the names. He will kill them. He will kill them after he gets what he wants. Damian's men waited for orders. For the first time, their leader had none. Cassidy looked toward room 17. Then, at the motel's old electrical system, an idea formed. The storm drains beneath the east wing, she said. They open under the parking lot. Damian looked at her. The tunnels are too narrow. For you. Cassidy, no. I can reach Elena. No. You said I retained operational authority. Not over your life. You do not own my life. His eyes burned. I know. Then trust me. I trust no one. You trust me enough to watch me sleep through 6 security cameras. This is not amusing. I'm not joking. Outside, Vincent's voice returned. 1 minute. Cassidy took Damian's face between her hands. His men looked away. You have spent 15 years trying to prevent this exact moment, she said. But control will not save them. Let me help you. His breathing became uneven. I cannot lose you too. There it was. The fear beneath the obsession. The truth beneath every lock he had installed. Cassidy held his gaze. Then don't. She entered the drainage tunnel beneath the laundry room, while Damian walked into the parking lot carrying the partial ledger. Rain struck him in sheets. He wore no coat, no visible weapon. Vincent smiled when he saw him. At last, you understand negotiation. Release the child. After I have the names. Elena has the accounts. Vincent looked down at his daughter. Celeste. Celeste stood near one of the SUVs, pale and shaken. She held a gun but aimed it at no one. Elena lifted her head. Her eyes found Damian. For 15 years, he had imagined this moment. He had imagined anger, relief, question. Instead, he saw his sister's terror for her daughter. Nothing else mattered. I'm sorry, he said. Elena's face broke. The words crossed the storm between them. Vincent held out his hand. The ledger. Damian stepped closer. Beneath the parking lot, Cassidy crawled through freezing water and mud. She reached the drainage grate behind Vincent's vehicle and pushed it open silently. The little girl stood only a few feet away. Cassidy extended one hand. The child saw her. Her gray eyes widened. Cassidy pressed a finger to her lips. Damian saw the movement, but did not react. Vincent took the ledger. He opened it. These are only account fragments. The names were never in the floor. Vincent looked up. Damian smiled without warmth. They were in the wall. Vincent's expression changed. At that moment, Cassidy pulled the child toward the open drain. Elena threw herself sideways. Gunfire erupted. Damian crossed the distance to his sister, while his men attacked from the motel balconies. Cassidy shielded the child inside the tunnel. Through the grate, she saw Celeste aim her weapon at Damian, then turn and shoot one of her father's men. Vincent struck her across the face. Damian reached Elena, cut her restraints, and pushed her behind an SUV. A bullet hit him. He staggered. Cassidy screamed his name. Damian remained standing. Blood spread across his shirt. Vincent raised a weapon toward Elena. Damian fired first. Vincent fell against the motel's broken sign. For a few seconds, the storm swallowed everything. Then the remaining attackers surrendered or fled. Cassidy climbed from the tunnel with the child in her arms. Elena ran to them. She took her daughter and held her tightly. Damian stood several yards away, one hand pressed against his abdomen. Rain and blood covered him. Elena looked at her brother. Neither moved. Cassidy watched 15 years of grief standing between them. Then the little girl reached toward Damian. Uncle? His face collapsed. He sank to one knee. Elena crossed the distance and wrapped her arms around him. Damian held his sister and niece beneath the broken motel sign, while rain fell over all three of them. Cassidy turned away, crying. A sharp pain spread through her shoulder. She looked down. Blood darkened her sweater. She had not felt the bullet graze her during the attack. Damian saw it. Everything inside him changed. He released Elena and crossed the parking lot with terrifying speed. Cassidy tried to say she was fine. He caught her as her knees weakened. No. His voice was no longer controlled. No, look at me. It's only my shoulder. You're bleeding. So are you. He lifted her into his arms. Around them, his men froze. They had seen Damian Vale order wars and executions without emotion. They had never seen him afraid. Get the doctor, he shouted. The sound echoed across the parking lot. Cassidy touched his face. Damian, stay awake. I am awake. Do not close your eyes. I'm tired. His expression became desperate. Cassidy, please. The words silenced everyone. Please. From a man who never asked. Damian carried her into room 17 because it was the nearest room. He placed her on the bed where his sister had once slept. A private doctor arrived within minutes. Cassidy's wound was shallow. Damian's was not. The bullet had entered below his ribs. He refused treatment until the doctor finished with Cassidy. When he finally collapsed into a chair, Cassidy reached for him. You're an idiot. His face was pale. You were shot. So were you. It's different. Because you're arrogant? Because I can survive it. So can I. His eyes filled with something raw. I do not survive you. The room became silent. The doctor pretended to focus on his instruments. Cassidy looked at Damian. He seemed unaware that he had confessed in front of everyone. Or perhaps he no longer cared. After the surgery, Damian remained unconscious for 11 hours. Cassidy sat beside his bed in a private medical suite that had been established inside the renovated West Wing. Elena sat across from her. Her daughter slept nearby with the rabbit returned to her arms. You refused him a room, Elena said softly. Cassidy looked at Damian. Yes. He probably fell in love immediately. He did not. Elena smiled faintly. My brother has always loved through defiance. When we were children, He broke my favorite toy and spent 3 nights rebuilding it because he couldn't apologize. He still struggles with that. He has spent 15 years believing love is something people use to find where to cut him. Cassidy watched Damian's sleeping face. What made you return? Your mother. Elena removed an old envelope from her coat. Julia gave me instructions before we separated. She said I should come back only when Vincent began moving money out of the coastal accounts. It meant he was preparing to kill Damian and disappear. Why didn't you tell Damian who you were that first night? I saw him enter covered in blood. Elena's eyes lowered. I had a child beside me. I did not know what kind of man he had become. What changed your mind? He gave me the card. Cassidy remembered. If anyone follows you, call that number. He didn't recognize you. No. But he protected us anyway. Elena looked at her brother. That told me enough. Damian woke before sunrise. His first word was Cassidy's name. She leaned closer. I'm here. His eyes found her bandaged shoulder. Then her face. Are you hurt? No more than necessary. He tried to sit up. Pain forced him back. Cassidy pressed one hand against his chest. Stay still. Vincent? Dead. Elena? Safe. The child? Also safe. His body relaxed by degrees. Then he looked toward the door. Elena stood there holding her daughter's hand. Damian stared at them. The child approached his bed. You got shot. So did Cassidy. She says you're an idiot. Damian looked at Cassidy. She is often disrespectful. The little girl climbed carefully onto the edge of the bed. My name is Lily. Damian's throat moved. I'm Damian. I know, you're my uncle. His eyes closed briefly. When he opened them, Lily held out the rabbit. You can borrow him now. Damian accepted the toy. His hand shook. Elena crossed the room. This time, there was no rain, no gunfire, and no enemy separating them. She sat beside her brother. I'm sorry, she said. No. You searched for me. I failed you. You were 14. I should have protected you. You did. Damian looked at her. You fought them long enough for Julia to take me through the bathroom window. You saved my life. The truth struck him harder than the bullet. For 15 years, he had built an empire around a failure that had never happened. His face twisted with grief. Elena took his hand. Damian began to cry. Silently at first, then without restraint. Cassidy watched the feared man allow his sister to hold him while the child placed the stuffed rabbit against his chest. He did not hide. He did not turn away. For once, he let someone else protect him. 3 weeks later, the storms passed. The Breakwater Motel reopened under a new name. Cassidy refused Damian's suggestion to call it Vale House. She renamed it the 17. Every room had new windows, secure locks, clean walls, and a view of the ocean. Room 17 remained unchanged except for the repaired wall and a framed photograph of Julia Lane near the window. The ledger destroyed Vincent's remaining network. Several officials resigned. Families that had served him for decades turned against one another. Damian could have taken control of everything Vincent left behind. Instead, he dismantled half the operation and transferred the legitimate coastal properties into a trust managed by Elena. It was not redemption. Damian did not pretend to become innocent. But for the first time in his life, he began choosing what not to control. Cassidy stayed through the reopening. She told herself it was because the motel needed her. Damian knew better. He returned to Portland for 2 weeks to stabilize his organization. During that time, Cassidy noticed every absence. The empty chair near the lobby window. The untouched coffee cup. The silence outside room 17 at 4 in the morning. She hated that she missed him. She hated more that he did not call. On the 15th night, a black SUV entered the parking lot. Cassidy stood behind the desk, pretending her heart had not accelerated. Damian entered wearing a dark coat. His wound had healed enough that he moved normally. He placed a small box on the counter. Cassidy looked at it. What is that? Okay. To what? My house in Portland. She did not touch the box. Is this your version of romance? No. Good. It's my version of surrender. Cassidy looked up. Damian's expression was serious. He continued. You said I could not own your life. You can't. I know. I'm glad the bullet improved your understanding. His mouth almost curved. I sold the building where I installed the surveillance office. Cassidy blinked. You had an office? Yes. How many cameras? Enough. Damian. 32. She stared at him. I removed them. All of them? All except the public security cameras around the motel. And you won't watch them from Portland? No. Are you lying? I am en excellent liard. She narrowed her eyes. But not about this. The humor left his face. I cannot promise to stop wanting to know where you are. Cassidy waited. I cannot promise that I will not imagine every possible danger when you do not answer the phone. He moved closer, but I can promise not to turn my fear into your prison. The words were not perfect. They were better. Cassidy opened the box. Inside was not only a house key. There was also a folded legal document. She unfolded it. The deed to the motel. Her name appeared as sole owner. She looked at him. You bought this place for room 17. Yes. And now you're giving it to me? It was never the room I wanted to keep. The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. You should know, Cassidy said, that lines like that only work because you're frighteningly attractive. I'll remember. No, you won't. No. She came around the counter. Damian did not touch her. He waited. Cassidy placed one hand against his chest. Beneath her palm, his heartbeat remained steady. You disappeared for 2 weeks. I needed to ensure no one could use you against me. You could have called. I called 6 times. You hung up before I answered. I reconsidered. You were afraid? Yes. The admission was quiet. Cassidy smiled. Everybody gets scared. Recognition moved through his eyes. The child's words from the first morning. His hand rose toward Cassidy's face. He stopped before touching her. She leaned into his palm. Permission. Trust. Choice. Damian lowered his forehead to hers. I do not know how to love you gently, he said. I'm not asking you to become someone else. What are you asking? That you love me honestly. His eyes closed. I am obsessed with you. That is honest. I think about you when I should be making decisions that affect hundreds of people. That sounds inefficient. I have considered buying every building between here and Portland so no one can remove you from one without my knowledge. Do not do that. I won't. She studied him. Did you already make an offer? On 3. Damian. I withdrew them. She laughed. He watched her as if the sound were something he had survived a lifetime to hear. Then Cassidy kissed him. Outside, waves broke against the Oregon cliffs. The motel sign glowed steadily for the first time in years. Months later, during the first winter storm, the 17 was full. Travelers gathered in the restored lobby while rain covered the windows. Elena and Lily occupied room 17 whenever they visited, not because they were hiding, but because Lily claimed it had the best view. At midnight, Cassidy finished checking in the final guest. Damian sat in his old chair near the window. He still watched doors. Some instincts did not disappear, but now Lily's stuffed rabbit rested on the table beside him, and a cup of coffee waited in his hand. Cassidy walked over. You know we have an apartment upstairs. I know. You could sleep. I could. But you're sitting in the lobby. Yes. Why? Damian looked through the rain toward the highway. Then he looked at her. Because this is where you told me no. Cassidy sat beside him. That cannot be your favorite memory. It is. You were bleeding. You were impossible. You tried to buy my decision. I bought the motel instead. She shook her head. Damian reached for her hand. His fingers interlaced with hers. 15 years earlier, the motel had been the place where his family was destroyed. Now it held his sister's laughter, his niece's toys, and the woman who had taught him that protection without freedom was only another form of fear. The storm intensified. The lights flickered once. Damian's hand tightened around Cassidy's. She looked at him. 5 things you can see. His gaze stayed on her face. The windows, he said. 1. The desk. 2. The motel sign. 3. The rabbit. 4. She waited. His thumb moved slowly across her hand. You. Cassidy smiled. And what can you hear? The storm. 1. The ocean. 2. People upstairs. 3. My breathing? He leaned closer. Your heart. The lights steadied. Damian lifted her hand to his mouth and pressed a kiss against her fingers. Once, he had believed safety meant controlling every door, every road, every person who came close enough to hurt him. But Cassidy had refused him a room. Then she had given him something no amount of power could purchase. A place where he could be afraid. A woman who could walk away. And a reason to trust that she would choose to stay. Outside, black waves crashed beneath the storm. Inside, the Mafia Boss who had once purchased an entire motel for a secret beneath the floor sat beside the woman he could never own. He held her hand. And for the first time in his life, Damian Vale stopped watching the door.